The wind had the personality of a bitter ex, constantly trying to slap the hat off my head and remind me I never should have come back to Zora 9. The dust, of course, sided with the wind, launching a full-scale assault on my sinuses as I trudged down the canyon's edge. Around me, the makeshift refugee camp buzzed like a wasp nest full of tired people pretending not to lose their minds. Tents stitched from solar cloth flapped like drunken flags. Kids ran around chasing glowing bugs that were definitely radioactive. And I, in the midst of it all, was trying to drink recycled water from a cracked thermos while keeping an eye on her asterisk. She wasn't like the others. For one, she didn't talk. Not even in the way people don't talk because they're traumatized or introverted or annoyed. No, this woman walked through the camp like a glitch in the system, never bumping into anyone, never looking anyone in the eye. If you asked 5 people who shared a meal tent with her what she looked like, you'd get 5 versions and one suspicious shrug. Naturally, I followed her. Now, let me clarify, I'm not usually a creep. I don't tail mysterious women into canyons on a Tuesday afternoon. But there was something off about her, like she was vibrating slightly out of phase with the rest of reality. I'd once seen a cloaked merchant pull a gravity marble out of thin air on a backwater moon, and she moved just like that, smooth, disinterested in physics and quietly smug about it. She slipped through a break in the rocks, one I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't been staring too long, and almost walked into a cactus that looked suspiciously sentient. I ducked after her, pulling my coat tight and checking the charge on my wristlight. 17%. Excellent. Enough for a dramatic flicker before dying right when I needed it. Inside the crevice, the wind died and the silence pressed in. Not ordinary silence, this one had substance, like the universe was holding its breath. I squinted into the darkness. The walls pulsed faintly with bioluminescent veins, casting soft hues of violet and green. The passageway bent sharply, like a tunnel designed by someone with no concept of personal space. Or geometry. Then the temperature dropped, not cold like shade cold, cold like something ancient had once lived here and died stubbornly, refusing to leave. My breath fogged. I could hear my own heartbeat, which was annoyingly loud and increasingly dramatic. And then I saw her. She stood in the center of a circular chamber, barefoot on a glowing mosaic carved directly into the rock. Symbols, none of them Terran or any known dialect in the interstellar archive, glowed beneath her feet, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Her hood was down now, revealing sharp features, silver hair braided with tiny stones, and eyes that shimmered with layered colors like oil on water. When she looked at me, something flickered in the back of my skull, like an old memory trying to remember me. You weren't supposed to find this, she said. Of all the things she could have said, leave now who are you oh no, not you That was somehow the worst. It wasn't angry, it wasn't scared, it was disappointed. Like I'd just walked in on someone rearranging the laws of physics in their bathrobe. I cleared my throat and tried to speak, but instead of words, I made a noise that sounded like a space frog being stepped on. She raised one eyebrow and sighed. Well, I finally managed, you're not supposed to leave mysterious trails of glowing footprints through an overpopulated camp full of bored engineers. That's on you. A long silence followed. The mosaic beneath her dimmed slightly, as if judging my sense of humor. You're not afraid, she said. I opened my mouth to respond, realized I wasn't entirely sure, and closed it again. Not yet, I settled on. But give me another 5 minutes and something is definitely going to leak. The corner of her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but definitely in the neighborhood. I thought you were one of them, I said. Refugees, lost, scared, looking for a place to hide. She tilted her head. And you followed me because I'm a catastrophically curious idiot with zero impulse control, I replied. Also, I was bored, and you looked like you were about to do something illegal and/or interdimensional. Another twitch, this time closer to amusement. She stepped off the mosaic. The symbols blinked once and then dimmed completely. The temperature in the room snapped back to something reasonable. My breath stopped fogging. You've been altered, she said, circling me slowly. But it hasn't activated. Listen, I don't know who told you I'm some kind of cosmic Swiss Army knife, but I promise I'm aggressively average. My voice cracked a little at the end, which was unfair because I was going for charming rogue and ended up sounding like an anxious teenager meeting his celebrity crush. Do you remember the dreams? She asked. Dreams. I laughed nervously. Oh yeah, the ones where I'm naked in front of the Galactic Senate, Or the one where my high school math teacher turns into a black hole and sucks up my house. Total classics. No, she said, suddenly serious. The ones with the stars falling backwards, the silver ocean, the red door. My mouth went dry. I hadn't told anyone about those. She nodded slowly. It's beginning. What is? She leaned closer. The part where you stop pretending you're ordinary. Right, I said, and what comes after that? She smiled for the first time. It wasn't comforting. You helped me wake up a god. I blinked. Well, I said, can we at least have lunch first? She didn't laugh at the lunch joke. Not even a smirk this time, which felt like a personal failure. Here I was, standing in a cave clearly built by alien Pinterest gods, possibly about to have my DNA repurposed for some interstellar destiny, and the least I could hope for was a chuckle. But no, just the kind of expression you'd expect from someone deciding whether to let you live or turn you into a decorative lamp. Come, she said. That's it, just come. No dramatic speech, no ancient chant, no ominous sound effect. She gave me a look, the kind you give a particularly dim toaster that just shot sparks across the kitchen. With a sigh, I followed. The mosaic that had previously pulsed with some strange kind of sentient light was now dull underfoot, like a forgotten stage after the show's over. As she led me deeper into the tunnel system, the walls began to change. Not just in shape, but in material. First rock, then glassy black crystal, then something that looked suspiciously like petrified coral with circuit patterns running through it. It hummed when I passed like it recognized me. Or was judging my fashion choices. Hey, I said, jogging slightly to catch up. So just to clarify, are you going to explain anything? Or is this more of a vague metaphors until a massive reveal in Chapter 7 kind of situation? You ask too many questions, she replied. I have found that in life, asking questions usually prevents spontaneous combustion and/or ancient blood rituals. She didn't reply. We came to another chamber, smaller than the last, round like a bubble and faintly glowing. At its center stood what I can only describe as a floating rock slab, hovering, humming, definitely violating several known laws of physics and probably a few zoning regulations. This is where it begins, she said. Again, not to be difficult, but you said that last time and now we're here, which means either you have a flexible definition of beginnings or we're stuck in a dramatic loop. Her eyes narrowed. Place your hand on the stone. I hesitated. Are we sure it doesn't bite? It won't harm you, not unless it rejects you. Oh good, I muttered, comforting. Still, I stepped forward and reached out. The moment my skin touched the surface, the world did a thing. I won't say it exploded, that would be too dramatic. It shivered asterisk, like the universe got the hiccups. Then the visions hit. Planets I'd never seen crumbling under twin moons. A spiral-shaped city in the belly of a beast made of metal and fog. Stars collapsing into doorways. People things with too many eyes and names made of song. One of them looked like me. Another looked like me if I'd made better life choices and moisturized regularly. I stumbled back. My head spun like someone had stuck my consciousness in a centrifuge. Okay, I said, blinking. That was vivid. It's only the beginning. You really like that phrase, don't you? Sayla ignored me and stepped forward. The stone glowed brighter as she approached. Her fingertips danced across the surface, activating symbols that looked like constellations rearranging themselves. A low hum filled the air, mechanical, ancient, and deeply passive-aggressive. It's a memory relay, she said. Encoded for blood, yours, mine. Well, if you're planning on opening a family restaurant, I vote we go with a less ominous theme. She paused. You make too much light of this. Lady, I just downloaded a lifetime of alien trauma through a magic stone. If I don't joke about it, I'm going to start screaming. Or worse, writing poetry. Sayla didn't smile, but her shoulders relaxed. Slightly. I decided to call that progress. We left the chamber through a narrow passage that rippled faintly as we passed through, like walking through gelatin, or a badly coated firewall. What is this place? I asked. No offense, but this doesn't look like your average cave system. It was once a temple, she said. Now it's a ghost. Haunted, more like forgotten, though, she added, glancing at me. Some memories have sharp teeth. Great, so do some camp cooks. I'll take my chances here. She stopped suddenly. In front of us was a chamber filled with light. Not just illumination, actual liquid light, suspended in glassy tubes that twisted like tree roots. In the center, floating like the universe's weirdest lava lamp, was a sphere. Inside the sphere, a fetus, Not human, not entirely asterisk alien, it looked possible. Like something reality hadn't gotten around to inventing yet. What am I looking at? Sayla didn't answer, she just stared, her expression unreadable. Please don't say that's me, I added quickly. Because I had a long day, and I'm really not ready to process being my own great-grandmother. It's the seed, she said softly, the last one. Of what? Of us? There was a long, heavy silence. One the kind of silence you can't fill with jokes or sarcasm, so naturally I tried. So how do you keep it alive? Feed it warm star milk, read it bedtime stories about black hole formation. She looked at me. That was inappropriate, wasn't it? Yes, noted. Sayla reached out toward the sphere but didn't touch it. Her hand hovered, trembling slightly. When the war ended, she said, they erased everything, names, maps, bloodlines. But some of us hid. We buried memory in stone, in dreams, in genetic code. And now you're trying to bring it all back. She nodded, not to rule, just to remember. I stared at the glowing fetus. Its eyelids fluttered as if dreaming. One hand twitched, too many fingers unfurling and curling like petals. You're really bad at explaining things, I said, but I think I'm starting to get it. Sayla turned to me. Then you understand why we can't go back to the surface. Sure, because if we do, someone will probably try to kill us. No, she said, because someone already did. The thing about hearing you've already died is that your brain doesn't quite know where to file that information. Is it under existential crisis, medical anomalies, or just things to panic about later? I stood there staring at Sayla, whose expression remained maddeningly calm, while somewhere behind my eyes, a tiny version of myself was running in circles screaming. I'm sorry, did you say I'm already dead? I asked, very politely considering the circumstances. Not exactly, she said, which is exactly what someone says when the answer is definitely yes, but they're trying to break it to you slowly. She moved toward a wall I hadn't noticed before, one that shimmered like thin ice on top of boiling water. She waved her hand, and the surface melted inward, revealing a screen, or a window, or a portal. Look, it's hard to tell with alien architecture. Inside it was a scene, a moment frozen in time, and there I was, lying face down in the dust at the edge of the canyon. Okay, I said, raising one hand. Let's just breathe through this, that's not me. That's just a guy who looks like me and dresses like someone who bought all their clothes during a panic sale. It is *U, Sayla said, tapping the edge of the image. The scene zoomed in, showing my face, or what used to be my face, now a little more purple than ideal. You died 12 minutes before you entered the cave. Did I? I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain had decided that was the least messy reaction. She turned to me, serious. Something pulled your consciousness forward, preserved the pattern, reassembled it in here. In the cave. In the memory circuit, she corrected. The cave is only part of the interface. I blinked. So what you're telling me is I'm not me. She tilted her head. You are you, just a different version, a preserved waveform. Like a backup. Exactly. I rubbed my temples. Great, fantastic. I always wanted to be a cosmic USB stick. Sayla frowned. Is that an honor? In some cultures, probably. I sat down on a low ledge that looked vaguely like a bench and definitely hummed when I touched it. My legs didn't feel like legs anymore, just long, confused concepts. Sayla sat beside me, keeping a few inches of sacred alien distance, probably to avoid catching whatever existential dread I was emitting. I always thought I'd die doing something dramatic, I muttered. Falling into a reactor core, saving a colony from space pirates, choking on a microwave burrito. This may still qualify, she offered. Right. Just with fewer pirates and more philosophical identity crises. We sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that stretches just long enough to feel awkward before someone breaks it with a deeply inappropriate comment. So, I said, is there a warranty on this whole resurrected memory waveform thing? Like how long before I start glitching and quoting ancient poetry at passing wildlife? She smiled faintly. You're stable for now. Oh, good. I love conditional survival. A hum filled the chamber, low and urgent. Sayla stood immediately, her posture tightening like a wire pulled taut. They found the entrance. They as in? She didn't answer, which was not my favorite way to answer a question. The walls flickered. The floating tubes of light pulsed faster. The seed, the creepy glowy space baby, shifted slightly as if turning in its sleep. Do I get a weapon? I asked, standing and checking my pockets. Because I feel like this is the kind of situation that calls for a weapon. You don't need one, Sayla said, already moving. Your presence here is the weapon. That sounds great until someone shoots me. We moved fast through the tunnels, past chambers that flickered with old light and forgotten voices. At one point, a panel on the wall opened and revealed what looked like a vat of intelligent goo. It gurgled at me. Friendly, I asked. Mostly, Sayla said. Don't insult its language, it's very sensitive about pronouns. Duly noted. We arrived at a narrow junction. 3 paths, all pulsing faintly with light, like the cave was trying to decide which way to breathe. Sayla held up a small device that looked suspiciously like a metal clam with buttons. She pressed one, and the middle path dimmed while the others sealed shut behind walls of glowing vines. I hate that I'm getting used to this, I muttered. Good, Sayla replied. You'll need to adapt faster. As we ran, I caught a glimpse of movement behind us. Shadows that didn't match our steps, something tall, too many limbs, and one of them, this is true, had a cape. A cape, if your enemies wear capes, you're in trouble. I thought we had time, I said, panting. They're early, Sayla growled. They must have smelled the activation. Oh, great. They're punctual asterisk, and they have cape. The lights didn't just come on. They woke up. One by one, as we stepped farther into the corridor, they flared with a soft, golden awareness that somehow made me feel like I owed them an apology. I hadn't even done anything yet, which honestly felt unfair. Sayla walked ahead like this was all perfectly normal, and I followed, trying very hard not to look guilty for existing. This isn't a cave, I said after a few minutes of silent walking. This is a ship. She didn't slow down. Correct. Well, I'd like to take a moment to thank the ancient alien engineers for their excellent lighting design. Very dramatic. It was grown, not built. Grown, of course, silly me for assuming screws were involved. The hallway gently curved, which made it hard to tell how long or far we'd gone. There were no doors, no junctions. Just this endless, slightly too clean corridor humming quietly like it was in a good mood. At some point, I realized there was no dust, no decay, not even a smudge on the floor. Either this ship had the best self-cleaning systems in the galaxy, or it was secretly judging my boots for bringing in dirt. Eventually, the corridor widened into a chamber, circular, high ceiling, and finally, mercifully, a chair, a big one. It looked like it was made from folded starlight and regret. Sayla gestured. Sit. I eyed the chair. Is it going to ask for a blood sample? Only if you lie to it. I blinked. That's somehow worse. Still, I sat. The chair adjusted under me with a shiver, like a cat deciding whether to tolerate your presence. Something buzzed softly near my spine, and a puff of warm air brushed the back of my neck. Well, that's invasive. Sayla moved to a panel across the room and pressed her palm against it. Symbols bloomed in midair, forming a rotating lattice of data, memories, psychic grocery lists. I couldn't tell. One of the shapes looked like a nautilus shell made entirely of vowels. What exactly is this place? I asked. I mean, if this is a ship, is it functional? Are we going somewhere? Should I be buckled in or at least emotionally prepared? It's dormant, she said, waiting for alignment. Alignment with what? The stars, my chakras, the galactic Wi-Fi signal. With asterisk you asterisk, she replied without looking. Oh, I said. Well, no pressure. She manipulated the projection, and a soft humming began to rise in pitch. The walls pulsed in sync. The floor vibrated just enough to feel like a very polite earthquake. Then, the lights dimmed and the chair suddenly leaned back. Whoa, okay, this is happening now, I said, gripping the armrests. Is there at least a safety video? No safety video. Just Sayla watching as the projection folded into itself and then expanded again, only now it was showing asterisk me asterisk. My face, my pulse, my energy signature apparently. I don't even remember signing up for that newsletter. It's reading your pattern, she said, matching it to the seed line. Let me guess, I muttered. If it finds a match, I become the chosen one and get a shiny badge. If not, I explode. She shrugged. Roughly. Perfect. I closed my eyes and tried to relax, which is extremely difficult when an alien chair is scanning your molecules while your maybe alien guide is standing nearby with the emotional expression of a marble statue. Memories started surfacing. Not mine, or not asterisk only asterisk mine, a marketplace under 2 suns. A woman with 6 fingers teaching a child how to fold light into shapes. A war, so much war. Burning skies and ships that looked like metallic stingrays dancing through fire. And then silence. A silence that stretched across centuries. The chair released me with a sigh. Yes, a asterisk sigh asterisk. As if I'd passed a test, but only barely. Sayla walked forward, arms crossed. You're compatible. Wow, I've never felt so emotionally validated by furniture. The ship will recognize your commands, she said. You're part of the bloodline. Dormant but sufficient. Well, I always knew I had potential, I said. Usually in the might show up to the meeting kind of way, but this works too. She reached out and touched the side of the chair. Her hand trembled just slightly. This vessel was meant to carry the last of our kind. When the choir came, we encoded ourselves into memory, hoping for regeneration. You were meant to be among them, but your thread was cut. Cut how? Like scissors cut or reality is a simulation and I got deleted cut. Erased. Your line should have ended, but something stitched you back in. That sounds ominously lucky. There is no such thing as luck in the lattice. Then I must be a cosmic clerical error. She gave me a look that suggested she agreed. Before I could respond, a tone sounded sharp, urgent. The projections reappeared, now pulsing red. Symbols raced across the air like panicked insects. They're here, she said. Oh good, I was worried today wouldn't involve running from interdimensional assassins. We're not running. I raised an eyebrow. Are we negotiating, hiding? Throwing snacks at them until they leave. She turned to face the chamber entrance. We're launching. Wait, launching, I just sat down. A second tone sounded lower, heavier. The entire room tilted slightly, like the ship had just stretched after a long nap. Somewhere above us or below us or inside us, I felt the world slide. Sayla's eyes glowed faintly. This is not escape. It's reawakening. Well, reawaken slowly, please. I have motion sickness and unresolved trauma. The floor shifted again. A faint whine filled the air like something ancient trying to remember how to fly. I clutched the armrests. If this thing doesn't come with seatbelts, I swear. Then everything went weightless. My body lifted off the chair by about 2 centimeters, which doesn't sound like a lot unless you factor in the part where the room around me was now asterisk rotating. The ceiling disappeared, the floor became translucent, stars filled the space like spilled salt. We were no longer in the cave, we weren't even on the planet. Oh, I said as calmly as possible. Oh no, nope, big nope. Sayla smiled for real this time. Now you see. What I see is that I've left gravity behind and nobody gave me a snack bag. Outside, the planet shrank, the ship hummed louder. The stars began to shift, sliding across the dome like paint on water. We are not bound to one world, she said, not anymore. I stared out at the cosmos, heart hammering. So, I said, does this ship come with a user manual, preferably one that doesn't require blood sacrifices or a degree in celestial mechanics? Sayla laughed. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh. I wasn't sure if that was a good sign, or the beginning of something much, much weirder. Somewhere between the third star and my third panic attack, I decided space travel wasn't nearly as glamorous as the recruitment posters made it look. My internal organs were still trying to figure out which way was up, while the rest of me clung to the chair like it was a flotation device in a metaphysical ocean. Across the chamber, Sayla was calmly inputting something into the air with her fingers, just casually editing reality like it was a spreadsheet. So, I said, hoping my voice didn't sound as wobbly as my sense of existence, we're flying through space in a semi-sentient ship powered by blood memory and family trauma. She didn't look up. Correct. Great. Can we stop for snacks? There is nutrient synthesis available. Does it do cheese fries? She glanced at me, one eyebrow raised. Synth fries? That's a crime against starch, but fine. I'll take my chances. The chamber dimmed as we exited what Sayla called the planetary veil. Apparently, the ship had been buried under a false gravity field to prevent detection, which sounded fancy until I realized it also meant no one knew we were gone. Or alive, or existing in waveform depending on how one interpreted my current metaphysical state. The command center, or harmonic helm as Sayla insisted on calling it, curved upward into a massive dome. It didn't have screens so much as shifting membranes of light that responded to thought. When I tried to focus on a star, it zoomed in so fast I nearly fell out of my chair. Sayla turned the sensitivity down by 80%, which, frankly, was generous considering I'd also accidentally called up a galactic weather pattern that looked like a flamingo made of plasma. We were moving toward a cluster of objects I assumed were planets until one of them blinked. Is that alive? I asked, squinting at the blinking thing. It's a sentinel moon, Sayla said. Biomechanical. It monitors the thresholds between systems. Does it do anything else, like sing, throw judgmental looks? Mostly it hums, but it also alerts the choir. The same choir that sings people out of existence. Yes, Fantastic. Let's absolutely not introduce ourselves. Sayla adjusted our trajectory using a series of swipes and a mild scowl. The ship obeyed like a well-trained but slightly sarcastic butler. I swore I heard a faint asterisk tusk when it changed course. Does it have a name? I asked, tapping the armrest like a nervous passenger in an intergalactic Uber. The vessel. Sayla paused. It was once called Asterisk Irving Asterisk. I tested the word. It came out wrong the first 3 times and then finally rolled off my tongue with a faint aftertaste of ozone. What does it mean? Awakening seed in shadow. Poetic, I said. Very on brand. I was hoping for something like the SS Nope or Shipey McShipface, but yours has a better ring. Sayla ignored that. We coasted into the shadow of a hollow asteroid shaped like a twisted question mark. I pointed at it. That thing looks like it wants to ask me why I was born. It's a relic, Sayla said, from before the first silencing. You keep saying ominous capital letter words like I know what they mean. What's the first silencing? And please tell me it doesn't involve more interdimensional choirs. It was when the choir sang 13 worlds into entropy. Cool, 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 I said. Definitely not going to develop anxiety about singing ever again. The asteroid interior was littered with strange, fractal structures, like Coral had tried to cosplay as technology and overshot the mark. We docked near one and disembarked through a corridor that unfolded like a blooming flower. I tried to keep my cool, but stepping onto a living spaceport made of singing stone while being technically a backup copy of myself is a lot. Sayla led me to a vault embedded in the structure's heart. It pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm, not a light, a heartbeat. What's in there? I asked, keeping a safe distance in case it decided to hatch something. A memory fragment, she said. Encoded during the Exodus. Is it dangerous? It might show you something true. I rubbed my face. Okay, but hear me out. What if I'm in the mood for gentle lies today? She ignored me and placed her palm against the vault. A ripple ran through the air like someone had dropped a pebble into a pond of logic. The door peeled open. Inside was a chair, again with the chairs, and a sphere floating above it, flickering with compressed data. Why is everything important always floating? I muttered. I sat. The sphere drifted toward my face and then, without any dramatic warning, asterisk entered asterisk me. Now I know what you're thinking. Entered how? Through the eyes. Through the mind, through the metaphysical soul aperture, I don't know, it just was asterisk. And suddenly I was someone else. I was taller, stronger, wearing armor made from planetary crust. I held a staff humming with gravity. Before me stood a council of beings so ancient their faces had become symbols. We must not wake her, one of them said. If we do not, I replied, in a voice that definitely wasn't mine but felt terrifyingly right asterisk. Then we die singing. They argued. I stood still, and then I turned away. Back in my body I gasped. Okay, I wheezed, that was a lot. Sayla watched me quietly. What did you see? Politics, I said, and regret. Possibly some unresolved sibling rivalry. You saw the moment the war turned, she said. I saw myself turning my back on people. She nodded. Because you believed survival required sacrifice. I hate that I get that. Silence again, not the heavy end-of-world silence, the thoughtful kind, the kind that comes before decisions. I don't want to be that person, I said. You already are, she replied. But you get to choose what version of them you become. We left the vault. As we walked back to the ship, I tried to process everything, the visions, the chair, the version of me who made planet-cracking decisions without flinching. I need a nap, I said. Preferably one where I don't download any ancestral war crimes. Sayla said nothing. Back aboard asterisk Irving asterisk, the lights flickered once as we passed through the threshold. Something in the ship had shifted, recognized me. I looked at my hand. It didn't glow, it didn't hum, but it remembered asterisk. And that apparently was enough to scare the stars. Back on the ship, I discovered something profoundly important. Irving had a kitchen. Or at least the closest thing an ancient alien memory vessel could offer in the way of food preparation. It responded to neural prompts, which meant all I had to do was think asterisk of a meal, and it would try to synthesize it. The first thing I requested was pancakes. What I got was chewy and blue and softly glowing. I think it's judging me, I said, poking the blob on my plate. Sayla glanced at it. It's a base nutrient loaf, infused with thermal starch and synthetic amino flavor. So, not asterisk pancakes. If you believe hard enough, it might become them. I gave the loaf a cautious sniff. It smelled like a candle that had never emotionally recovered from being blown out. I don't think belief is going to cut it. Still, I ate it, mostly because I didn't want to offend the ship and trigger an allergic reaction from the artificial gravity. Sayla, meanwhile, was methodically adjusting settings at the helm, her fingers dancing across the control array like she'd played this song 100 times before. We were en route to something called the asterisk action fold asterisk, which, according to Sayla, was less a place and more a asterisk situation asterisk. Naturally, I asked for clarification. Naturally, she gave me a sentence that sounded like a crossword puzzle dipped in math. It's a quantum split zone where history runs parallel in locked sequences, she explained. Like time spaghetti, more like time origami, but violent. Great, I've always wanted to be folded into a violent metaphor. She brought up a map. It wasn't a normal map, though. It was more like a constellation was trying to have an argument with a Rubik's Cube. Lines twisted and rearranged, blinking in colors that probably represented either danger or a strong preference for jazz. At the center of it all was a rift, black, pulsing, and gently leaking what looked like angry lightning. That's the entrance, Sayla said. To where? To the temple, she said, where your pattern first fractured. I blinked. Are you saying I broke time? You sneezed during a reality loop and left a scar. That tracks. Sayla didn't smile, but the corners of her mouth twitched. A lot of our conversations had that effect. As asterisk Irving asterisk entered the outer edge of the fold, things got weird. Not aliens and lasers weird, we were well past that. This was a whole different category of strange. One moment I was sitting in the chair, and the next I was standing in a version of my old apartment, wearing a towel and holding a toothbrush. I said to the room, which responded by becoming my old university dorm instead. Sayla, I called, no answer. I opened the door and stepped into a spaceship hallway. But not asterisk our asterisk spaceship. This one was sleeker, cleaner, with lighting that screamed approved by the Galactic Board of Architects. Then a man walked past me, tall, confident, wearing a uniform that shimmered like oil and logic. I recognized him instantly, because he had my face, my walk, my exact hair, only somehow better styled. Oh no, I muttered. Is this one of those what you could have been if you tried harder visions? He turned to look at me and smiled. You're early, he said. I didn't think you'd show up this soon. Excuse me. I replied, still clutching the ghost of a toothbrush I didn't even remember asking for. Relax, he said, stepping closer. This isn't an attack, it's a checkpoint. I hate checkpoints. He studied me, eyes narrowed slightly. You still carry the sarcasm. Good, we'll need it. Okay, I'm going to need several things explained, preferably with diagrams and snacks. This is a fracture echo, he said. A shard of you that branched when your timeline cracked. I was left behind, you moved forward. So you're me. I'm asterisk one asterisk of you, he corrected. The one who didn't follow Sayla. I stared. So what happened to you? He gestured around us. I rose through the stellar command. Led fleets, saved planets, burned others. Yikes, he shrugged. It wasn't all bad. We outlawed those weird space commercials with dancing algae. Okay, that's definitely a win. He stepped closer, more serious now. But I've also watched the stars go dark. One by one, the choir's waking up faster than we predicted. Whatever Sayla's trying to do, you have to let her. That's the plan, I said. Unless she tells me to sacrifice a planet. Or wear sandals, I have limits. The thing about a temple answering you in total darkness is that you start to wish it had better manners asterisk. Or at the very least, a doorbell. Instead, we got sound. Not words, not music, something between tectonic whispering and static-fed whale song, echoing through every surface and organ. I could feel it in my kneecaps, and also in my questionable life choices. The lights flickered back on one by one, but they weren't the ship's lights. These were older asterisk, yellow-white, uneven, like a machine trying to remember how to glow. The walls of asterisk, Irving asterisk shifted, literally pulling themselves apart in geometric panels to reveal another corridor that hadn't been there a second ago. Sayla stepped forward, calm as ever. I meanwhile did a quick internal diagnostic and discovered my courage reserves were currently set to nervous quip mode. So, I said, just to confirm, we're about to walk into a temple that was locked in a pocket dimension and hasn't been visited in a few millennia, correct? Yes, and it just asterisk invited asterisk us in. Yes, that's never suspicious. Sayla didn't answer. She just stepped through the corridor, and I followed because I had this strange, nagging feeling that if I let her go in alone, the universe would hold it against me forever. Or at least until the next reboot. The temple did asterisk look like a temple. It looked like the inside of a collapsing thought. The corridor curved and split and reassembled itself mid-step. Symbols blinked on the walls and then turned off again like they were having second thoughts. There were sounds in the distance, wings maybe, or teeth, or both. "Is this a test?" I asked. "Sort of," Sayla said. "It's a memory construct layered over reality." "Oh good," I muttered. "A temple with filters." A doorway opened, revealing a room full of floating glyphs. Not stationary, not ornamental. They swirled like a storm, and when I stepped inside, they swarmed me, not aggressively, but curiously. One of them hovered in front of my nose, then zipped through my ear and came out somewhere behind my left shoulder. My brain got a static pop and a very brief, very detailed memory of being born on a ship that never existed. "What was that?" I asked, blinking. "The room is reading you," Sayla said, "matching the remaining pattern of your original thread." "Is that why it just showed me my imaginary birth?" She nodded. "It's trying to recompile your divergence. You're not quite whole." "Well, that explains a lot about my dating life." The glyph slowed, then dispersed into the walls. A pulse ran through the floor, faint like a sigh. The next chamber was worse. It was full of *me*, not metaphorical versions, actual projections, dozens, hundreds. All walking, fighting, laughing, dying. Some had scars, some had wings. One had what I swear was a lightsaber made of bone and guilt. "They're echoes," Sayla explained. "Variants created by fractures in the original timeline. Some are hypothetical. Some are still active." I pointed to one of them, bald, wearing a crown of stars, commanding a fleet of ships shaped like spirals. "Is that guy evil me?" Sayla tilted her head. "He chose conquest, efficient, logical, lonely." "And what about that one?" I pointed to another version, barefoot, dressed in what looked like robes made of mist, meditating in a crater full of floating rocks. Ascended, untethered from form. "Wow," I said. "And here I am, barely surviving off weird space pancakes and hoping my socks match." I stepped closer to the projections. One turned to look at me, just for a second. It winked. I did not wink back. The walls peeled away into a staircase that went both up and down, folding on itself like it was being drawn by someone with commitment issues. Sayla chose down. "Why do I get the feeling we're walking towards something that doesn't want to be found?" I asked. "Because we are," she said. "It's the last anchor." "Of what?" "Of your pre-erasure self." Again with the vague existential horror, I muttered. "Can't we just go to a spa planet or something?" At the base of the staircase, we reached a small chamber. It was quiet, not empty, just quiet, the kind of quiet that hums under your skin. At its center stood a mirror. I approached cautiously, half expecting it to scream or explode or offer me a riddle. Instead, it showed me. But older, tired. Still me, but with a look in the eyes like he'd seen the universe end twice and didn't want to talk about it. "Is this another echo?" "No," Sayla said. "This is the source." Mirami raised a hand, and I felt my own arm twitch. "I don't like this," I said. "I already have enough issues without meeting the version of me who apparently knows what he's doing." Mirami opened his mouth and spoke. "You left," he said. "You let them erase the line." "I didn't know," I started. "You chose not to know, you ran." I stepped back. I didn't run. You forgot," he interrupted. "On purpose." Sayla stayed silent, watching. "I was a kid," I said. "They took everything. I didn't understand what I was giving up." Mirami stepped forward. Our noses nearly touched. "And yet here you are. Trying again. What else can I do?" "Remember," he said. "Remember me. He placed a hand on the glass. I reached out and touched it. And just like that, it shattered. Not the mirror, the illusion, the temple, the corridor. All of it collapsed into data and sound and light and falling. I landed on the deck of Irvine with a grunt. Sayla knelt beside me. "You accessed the anchor." Was that what that was? Felt more like a therapy session, hosted by a time-traveling judge version of myself. "Now," she said, "you can choose which path to walk." I sat up. The glyph from earlier floated past me and settled into my chest with a warm hum. I looked at Sayla. "Do all temples end in emotional whiplash?" She stood. "Only the ones that matter." "Great," I said, brushing space dust off my pants. "Then what now?" Outside, the fold began to change shape. And something on the other side started knocking back. The knocking was not a sound. Not exactly. It was more like a question being asked across the fabric of reality, and unfortunately, I was the one it was directed at. A sort of, "Hey, remember that cosmic responsibility you didn't ask for but are now inextricably tangled up in" kind of vibe. Subtle, elegant, deeply menacing. Like being called into a meeting by a boss who uses your full name. Sayla didn't blink as the vibrations passed through the walls of Irving asterisk. She just stood at the helm, arms folded, jaw set in that, yep, this is happening way she'd mastered. Me, I was less composed. Should I open the door, I asked. There is no door, she said. That's never a comforting answer. She gestured to the console. It's a contact request, their attempting phase speech. Are we accepting? It's polite. That's a terrible reason. I sighed and touched the interface. Immediately the air thickened. Not like humidity, more like a dense, invisible soup of language and memory. A voice slid through my skull like a polite hallucination. Fragment recognized, permission requested, pathway recalibration in progress. Okay, I said aloud. First of all, high asterisk. Sayla raised an eyebrow. I waved her off. Talking to the terrifying quantum entity outside. Normal stuff. I turned back to the interface. What do you want? Asterisk sequence conflict detected. Core pattern incomplete. Stabilization required. Yeah, I get that a lot. Look, I'm working on the whole who am I across time and space thing. I just had a pretty intense group therapy session with 50 versions of myself and a judgmental mirror. The presence paused. Or maybe I did. Either way, the air pulsed. Anchor attained. Fracture alignment possible. Proceed to convergence. Is that a question or a warning? Yes. I looked at Sayla. They want to merge something. Let them. That's easy for you to say. Your soul isn't on the cosmic anvil. She nodded. True. Mine was already hammered into a key. With the confidence of someone who had no idea what was about to happen, I said, Fine, proceed. The ship jolted, reality hiccuped, and suddenly I was in two places. One, still seated on the ship, feeling like I'd just been unplugged from my body and lightly shaken. Two, standing in a room that wasn't a room, more like a thought shaped into architecture. Everything glowed gently, including me. Which was mildly concerning. Across from me stood someone, not me, not asterisk exactly, a version I hadn't seen before. No weapons, no armor, just calm, open, quiet. You're late, they said. Sorry, I said. Had to take a few detours through traumatic memory fragments and literal time folds. They nodded, sounds on brand. We sat across from each other on chairs that formed out of thin air, because apparently furniture just happens asterisk in advanced dimensions. Are you the final version? I asked. Like the full me, director's cut. I'm the piece you buried, they said. The first fracture, the part that said no. No to what? To everything, to power, to war, to memory. I leaned back. Well, at least one of us had good boundaries. You had to forget me to survive. Did I? Yes, they said, but now you have a choice. Here it came, the big sci-fi turning point. Merge with myself or remain half-baked across all timelines. Classic Tuesday. What happens if I say no? I asked. You keep surviving, drifting, joking, dying. And if I say yes? You become the vector. I paused. That sounds like a lot of responsibility for someone who still forgets passwords. They smiled. You already are, this just lets you remember. I reached out, our hands touched, and just like that we weren't two people anymore. We were a asterisk whole asterisk. Suddenly I remembered everything, the city of spirals, the war, the moment I stepped away, the moment I asterisk hid, all the timelines that branched because I was too scared to choose. I came back to the ship gasping. Sayla caught me before I fell. You merged, she said. I nodded, breathing like I'd just sprinted through the metaphysical Olympics. I remember now, I said. The choir, the codes, the burial of the seed. Sayla waited. I was supposed to activate the lattice all those years ago, but I froze. You chose peace. I chose silence, I said, and it almost ended everything. The ship pulsed. A new symbol lit up on the helm. It's time, Sayla said. Time for what? For you to speak. I looked at the interface. The symbol wasn't a command. It was a name. Mine asterisk, not just the one I used in refugee databases or on forged ID chips. The true one, the one coded into stardust and blood and song. Okay, I said, but I warn you, I'm a little out of practice with being the chosen one. Sayla stepped aside. I placed my hand on the console and spoke, not in words. In asterisk meaning. I told the ship what I was, who I had been, who I had become. I gave it my fracture, my fear, my jokes, my losses, the shape of my soul now whole again. The ship sang back, not a song with melody, a resonance. Deep, joyful, terrifying. Somewhere beyond the fold, a fleet began to stir. Somewhere across the galaxy, the choir tilted their heads, and somewhere deep inside the seed, still floating in its cradle, an eye opened. When the seed blinked, I knew the universe had officially crossed from inconveniently mysterious into actively rewriting the laws of causality with jazz hands. Sayla didn't move. I think she'd been waiting her whole life for that blink. Me, I was trying very hard not to hyperventilate in front of the ship's core like someone who'd just been promoted to intergalactic messiah without reading the job description. "So," I said, "that's it. It's awake now. Do I get a congratulatory muffin or something?" Sailor exhaled. "The awakening begins, the seed will learn, and so must you." I frowned. "Do I have homework? Because I didn't bring a notebook or a functioning grasp of time." She smiled, small, real. "No notebooks, just a task. That always means something emotionally heavy, doesn't it?" She nodded. I walked to the cradle where the seed floated. It was pulsing now, aware, not dangerous, not yet, but potent. The kind of presence that made you suddenly aware of your bones. It's going to need someone to teach it not to explode the galaxy out of curiosity, isn't it? "Yes," Sayla said. "Let me guess, that someone is me." "It listens to you. Your frequency harmonizes. Because I'm technically its distant ancestor. Or because I accidentally downloaded half a civilization's worth of forgotten trauma into my skull last week." "Yes, great," I turned to her. "So what about the choir? Are they still tuning their instruments of annihilation?" "They've paused," she said. "They heard the reawakening, they're confused." "Good," I muttered. "Let's keep them confused. Maybe throw in some mixed signals and romantic subtext." She raised an eyebrow. "Look, I'm doing my best," I added. "My skill set was originally mildly funny engineer who knows how to hotwire vending machines, not galactic rebuilder of ancient legacy." "You're adapting." "Barely. I had a mental argument with myself in a time temple. I'm still recovering." The seed opened its eyes, both of them. Well, technically 7 of them. I counted fast and decided the number was emotionally manageable as long as I didn't try to assign pupils. It reached toward me, not physically, just a pulse of intent. A question. "I think it wants to know what happens next," I said. "You tell it," Sayla replied. "It's yours to guide now." "No pressure." I stepped closer and took a breath. "Okay, little glowing jelly bean of cosmic potential. First lesson. Don't sing people out of existence. That's rude. Second, boundaries are important, especially with timelines. Third, jokes can save lives." The seed pulsed in agreement. Or indigestion, I chose optimism, Sayla approached. "We'll need to return to the core worlds. Begin reintroducing the memory lines." I groaned, paperwork." "You'll have help." "Oh, good. I've always wanted a team of time-fractured copies of myself." "Some of them may already be doing the work." I squinted at her. "Is that your way of saying I might bump into Wing Me again, or the creepy Emperor version?" "Possibly, but you're no longer fragments. You're the anchor." Terrifying, but flattering. The ship rotated slowly. We were no longer hiding. Irvine had revealed itself, a bright, humming signal across the stars, the kind that couldn't be ignored. Messages were already incoming.